Everyone, welcome. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson. I am the Coordinator of Communication in the Ministry of Tourism, the Creative Economy and Culture. Welcome to another in the program Traditional Mass Talk. We are at the Grenville Secondary School and today we're talking JAB. So we've already dealt with Shortney, Veko, Shakespeare, Maypole and Wild Indian and Apache as well as Moko Jumbi. And as I mentioned, we're talking today about JAB. And the final Old Mass, we'll be talking about Old Mass on the 15th, that's next Wednesday at GBSS. So let's talk about who's here right now. Next to me is Mr. Vaughn Thomas, also known as Iraq, representing Lafayette JAB. Next to him, Mr. Ivan Bola, historian. And next to Mr. Bola is Mr. Livingston Nelson, CEO of the Grenada Cultural Foundation. And next to him is Dr. John Angus Martin, historian as well. So this program is hosted by the Ministry of Tourism, the Creative Economy and Culture, and sponsored by the Grenada Cultural Foundation, Spice Mass, and the Grenada Tourism Authority, GTA. Before we let the panelists have their say, we will go to Dr. Angus Martin, who will present a video and then followed by a PowerPoint presentation. Dr. Martin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. And I'm going to start off by showing a film that was done by Spice Mass and GTA some years ago, just to give you an intro and to start the discussion.
Scared. Because it was uniquely Grenadian. Juve morning for me, playing jab for me, is being Grenadian. Is being a Grenadian who's expressing our culture. It is being Grenadian who recognizes the equality that can be Grenadian, is expected to be Grenadian. And I say this because as I witness Jab Jab, as I embrace Jab Jab, there's a oneness. No other experience, Grenadian experience throughout the year, takes on that singularity of purpose, that unification of people, as we would see from Jab Jab. We all stripped down. We all in quote-unquote old clothes. We all black. The blacker the better. So whether you're rich or poor, whether you're black, white, Indian, whether you're from country or you're from town, it matters not. So all social classes, all economic classes comes together on that Monday morning, unlike any other time where Grenadians come together. Save and except probably Kirani James winning a gold medal, which brings us all together. But Jab Jab on an annual basis can guarantee that. And as you look at the mass coming through, whether wherever it's being played, so it's Paraclete moving to Grenville or it's coming along the Kirani James Boulevard, it really doesn't matter where you see them. All you see is black. one of the things that we need to recognize is how different Monday morning is and should be from Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday afternoon is revelry and celebration. Monday morning, as I said, if I'm going to focus on the DJAB, is one of protest, is one of resistance, is one of recognition of the struggles that we are going through and that we went through. It is carrying the burdens of those trials and tribulations. So as you see us moving slowly through the town of St. George, it is the weight that we carry. You can't jump and whine with the burden that you have as a job. The chain that you're pulling, the shackles on our ankles, the balls that sometimes are being carried, all of this represent the trials, the tribulations, the challenges of our people. And that we carry through the town of St. George on Monday morning. The discussions, of course, of the history of the likes of a DJAB would come about with slaves mainly, adorning themselves not in the pretty costumes that massa could have adorned themselves in, but what they had. So it was the likes of the molasses. It was the likes of the charcoal dust that were used to blacken themselves, to disguise themselves. And as we would have moved on, oil came. So it was really one of utilizing what was around us in making that revelry, but it's also the protest that was an integral part. So the Calypsonian protested in song, but the DJAB protested in portrayals. So you would see the portrayal and the recognition of the devil. So you have the horns, right? You'd have the chains. You'd have the dripping of the blood. But it's not, and I want to make this very clear as well, it is not saying we are the devils. It's one of mimicking the devil. And those are two very different things. So I don't want anybody to believe, in terms of our heritage, that we are taking on the persona of the devil or suggesting that we as a people are devils. What we're saying is that those devils we are mimicking, and we can identify the devil as different individuals or different systems as we would have evolved coming from emancipation to today, because la luta continua, the struggle continues. We are not all free. All is not right in terms of our social systems, and therefore the resistance and the relevance of the DJAB continues, and is understanding the heritage, understanding the origin, understanding the struggles that our forefathers went through as we drag those burdens through the streets of the town, whichever town, St. George's, Grove, Victoria, Grenville, you name it, because DJAB is Grenadian.
DJAB is Grenada's most popular traditional masquerade that has come to define Juve and even Spice Mass itself. It is the oldest documented traditional masquerade in Grenada, with a continuous historical presence for at least 115 years. Over the century plus of blackening the streets of Grenada's towns and villages, it has evolved in both appearance and symbolism. The characteristics of DJAB: coals dust, old oil, grease on its body, helmet or posy with horns on head, chains dragging, blood red lips in the mouth, assortment of adornments in the mouth, saltfish, animal products, face, body, or dragged and pushed. Trinidad, 1848 and 1888. The image is the first we have of anywhere in the Caribbean, specifically Trinidad, where we see something that looks like a devil mask, but that we could call DJAB. and in this case, they call it Jab Malassi in Trinidad. The first mention of the description of the jab, however, was in 1848. A visitor was in Trinidad and talks about this masquerade that he describes, Blackened Devil in the Trinidad Carnival. It's interesting to note that Trinidad was never a French colony, but Trinidad got all of their Creole culture, French Creole culture, from places like Grenada. It was a Grenadian, a French Grenadian, who went to Trinidad and got the permission to bring in all of the other French people from Grenada and Martinique and some of the other places. And that's how a lot of the culture of Trinidad came from these different places, including Grenada. And things like Jab Malassi went to Trinidad as well. Blackened devils everywhere. Jab type masquerades in the region have historical presence only in former French colonies and current overseas departments that still retain prominent Catholic populations, and carnivals as seen in Jab Malassi in Trinidad, Lancet Cord in Jacmel, Haiti, Neg Marron in Cayenne, that's French Guyana, Papa Jab in St. Lucia, Darkies or Black Devils in Dominica, and Negua Siwo in Martinique. And these are just some of the pictures. The top is the Jab in Trinidad, as well as the Blue Devil that derives from the Jab Malassi in Trinidad. The one on the left bottom with the red and that looks like the Lafayette Jab, that's in French Cayenne, and on the two horns, that's in Haiti. Jab-like masquerades are also found predominantly in Catholic Spanish countries of Oaxaca in Mexico, Managua, Nicaragua, and even in Luzon, Spain. The bottom photograph is actually from Spain. It's interesting to note they have these massive cow horns, and they carry the big bells around their waists, but they also take Irish potato and make extra large teeth, which they hold in their mouth. Which I find quite interesting. From Jab Malassi to Jab. Jab Malassi is derived from the French Creole, the word diable, devil, and molasses, or molasses devil, was daubed in a gooey mix of molasses or wet sugar and coal's dust, charcoal. It's believed to be the first true expression of this masquerade by the mid to late 1800s, though it may have begun covered in readily available mud or dirt. It is a form of the devil mask that's played across the region, specifically Catholic dominant countries, with clearly visible satanic symbols, i.e. horns, tail, trident or pitchfork or whip, fire, and chains. The chains that they think come from the biblical, when God said to Satan, I will bound you in chains for 1,000 years. A blackened skin, biblical-derived live serpents, snakes around the neck, legally banned, and even the Bible parodied in the irreverent and comical Jab spelling contest that's especially in Grenville Jab and reminiscent of the Perrault Grenade and other speech masks. Jab is the Creole or patois from the French for devil, diable, often written in English as JAB, Jab. It does not mean double devil, but doubled for emphasis. And that is a common patois lingual expression. You double it, it's like we say yes we saying yes. Also known as Jab Malassi and Devil Mask, with a noted version called Ye, that was an earlier version that has since disappeared. Though often described as one distinct masquerade, there have been many versions of Jab at the same time, shaped by individual village portrayals of the biblical devil across the islands and over the centuries plus of its recorded existence. Jab originated in the rural areas of Grenada with a strong presence in St. Andrew, in villages like Lafayette, La Poterie, Bylands, and Paraclete, but spread to other places like Pedmota, Windsor Forest, and St. Paul's. It should be made clear that the Jab is a parody and not devil worship in any form, as some detractors, particularly evangelical Christians, have labeled it in an attempt to discredit it and its prominent place in Grenadian culture and thus identity. 1828, we actually have a reference to Carnival in Grenada where they mention playing the devil or the fool. There is no description, so we have no idea what that devil is. In 1848, we have the description from Trinidad, a gang of almost naked primitive bedaubed with black varnish, pulling at the chain attached by a padlock to one of their members who was occasionally knocked down. That's the description we have from 1848 in Trinidad. In 1881, there's a description that begins talking about Grenada. The masquerade carnival passed off here in Grenada with the customary displays of harmless tomfoolery. But then it goes on to talk, in Trinidad, however, the usual outrages were committed, and according to a paper received yesterday, 28 policemen were severely wounded in endeavoring to suppress the camboulé. And that is another, that used to happen on Sunday nights in both Trinidad and Grenada. In 1911, we have the first mention of DJAB in Grenada. And it was a visitor who was here, and he writes, and the natives used to cover their bodies with soot and pitch, like the sackcloth and ashes of the Bible. But instead of doing penance, they got into the habit of running amok and soiling the spectators' clothes, so it had to be stopped. In 1922, supposedly Petit Charles reportedly first introduced the DJAB mask to Carriacou. The first descriptions we have of DJAB in Grenada are from the 1920s. Eileen Gentle and Nellie Payne, and they talk about DJAB in their early years. And she says, we had an excellent view of the various bands that paraded in the main streets of Guave, but were far enough away from the devil masquerades. These were men who smeared their bodies with black grease and wore just a loincloth and a horrible fierce mask. There was a heavy chain around their waists, one end of which was held by an equally frightening man. We were absolutely terrified of these men. And Nellie Payne talks, she says, as the morning wore on, DJABs made their appearance. This comprised one adult male in Crocker's bag, tarred, cow chain around his waist, and cow horns on his forehead. The cow chain was held by a little boy, tattered and blackened. Two other boys attended, tarred to one beating a kerosene pan and the other a 5-pound butter pan. This is the song that I grew up hearing, DJAB in Tong. Ule ulambe, DJAB, ule ula, DJAB, gijaba kopo, to pay passage to go back to hell. Ule ulambe, DJAB, ule ula. Many masquerades performed for money. And even shortney and all of these, the throwing of powder and all of that kind, all of that, the performance was about money. Maypole, you go back to all of these, everybody performed, like a Maypole will get to a junction, set up, do their dance, and collect money after. All of these masquerades, and even today you do see a little element of it. Willie Redhead in the 1920s and 30s, he described the devil mask with variations have always been part of the carnival scene and frightened many a child. Even some adults were scared stiff of the blackened bodies, wearing a pair of cattle horns, a reddened tongue, and long bits of tin fashioned into fingernails. Behind him he trailed a long, heavy chain that clanked horribly. The chain was usually supported by two assistants with blackened bodies, but without horns. All they wore were brief shorts. They demanded money from their victims by cornering them, clanking their devilish fingers and repeating a chorus which went like this: Ule ulambe gijaba copper to buy some honey before he go back to hell. The hapless victim paid up for the fear of being smeared, and or took flight pursued by the devils. In 1968, the main activity focused on DJABs. They were the grotesquely dressed, acting people, mostly young men. They were coarsely dressed, covered with black grease, and wore chains that clanked and banged as they chanted, "Give Jab money to go to hell again." They coveted around, some rubbing against people, pushing, threatening, and throwing ropes and chains around them. In Carriacou, we have a description from 1971. There was also Jab, and that's how the spelling and everything I kept. 2 or 3 men blackened with charcoal and chained to each other. The person is pretending that he is the devil, beating his son to ask for money to pay for his freedom. On 1972, on Carnival Tuesday, Veco from Guave, players from Guave attacked a band of masquerades from the Angel Harps band with a violent confrontation ensuing. And the next year, the government posted that no person shall play the mask known as DJAB. And the piece of the legislation on 3rd of February 1973, the government of Grenada passed legislation titled Carnival Regulations Act as amendments to the 1958 Carnival Regulations Act, and banning persons from playing the mask known as DJAB and Veco. It read in part, during the 4 weeks preceding the carnival and during the carnival, no person shall make, sell, distribute, wear, carry, have in his or her possession or in any manner deal with masks, dominoes, sticks, whips, spiked footwear, or other offensive weapons. A big part of carnival was groups, either villages that met each other and clashed. And for many years, that was the common thing between, and up until the 60s and 70s. But it's after restrictions like these that most of the masquerades have lost their fighting, stick fighting, which only remains in one masquerade today, the Shakespeare Mass in Carriacou. They still beat each other on the head with their don't say correctly the pieces that they recite. These are early photographs. This is the first photograph on the left is from the 1920s, 30s, supposedly representing what JAB would have looked like back then. The next photograph is from actually 1961. It's the earliest photograph that I have seen. And there are probably people with photographs out there. We would love to be able to see those. But that's one of the earliest ones. Just an interesting to note that in Trinidad, this is JAB. Because in Trinidad, our JAB is called Jab Malassi. This looks more like our short knee and Shakespeare Mass in one. If you look at the costuming and the fact that they actually still whip each other really badly in Trinidad. So there's always interest in where JAB come from. In Africa, in West Africa, devils are used for masquerades, but that devil is actually something that was branded by Europeans. They saw their masquerades and they called them all devils because they're probably involved in some spiritual aspect of these different groups. People assume that they were devils. In West Africa, there's no such thing as a devil. In none of their belief system do they have devils. So devil is a foreign thing to West Africa. But you will find in places like Nigeria, there's the Ekpo masquerade, where you do see figures that blacken their skin and have portrayals that one could say bear some sort of similarity with our JAB. I think it's some of these things we have to explore, what connections, if any, they may have to some of these. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so very much, Dr. Martin. So I will go now to historian, Mr. Bowler. Let's just add to what Dr. Martin would have said. How has it evolved over the years, JAB, from basically what he has described to what it is today?
Well, thank you very much. My experience of JAB comes from the plantation setting. That's where I remember the evolution of JAB from back then to now. That the majority of the players were from the plantation where they worked. For example, in the Tivoli area, we had Pointsville Estate, River Antoine Estate, we had Belmont, and these guys just took the time off to express themselves, to distress, because life was very difficult on the estates. And when Carnival comes around, JAB was the people's mass, the opportunity to be free, to be liberated, and the people in the village look forward not for sweet mass and fancy mass, but jab jab was the thing. As Dr. August Madding said, it had a strong country meaning countryside base, definitely based on the plantation system. Over the years, it has actually evolved to a degree where I would say it smashed class barriers, because Jab Jab was the mass of the poor people. Over the years, it has evolved to a stage now where this class thing has disappeared. Upper class, middle class, low class, no class at all. Everybody playing Jab Jab these days. So I think this is one thing that helped to, unite, and the idea of town and country disappear. When you go down to Juve morning, nobody cares where you come from. You don't care if you're country or if you're middle country or if you're in town. It's just Jab, it's one people, and just one unity. What I noticed also, apart from the liberating aspect and the class smashing aspect of Jab Jab, the people were the ones who did all the judging of the Jab Jab bands. We used to look forward for different Jab Jab from Hermitage. They come from Lafayette. They come from Montrose and so on. They come to Tivoli. They all gather together. There was an educational aspect of it. I haven't seen it anymore these days. That when guys come, different bands would challenge each other in Jab Jab spelling. The books used to be very, very thick like this. I think they used to. Bible could never be so big. I think they used to take the pages and put it together. Carnival, when a guy opened a book, is massive, and he's spelling from there. So one Jab challenged the other one from another band, and he gives a spelling. And I think this is where extempo for me was the greatest, because he spells some word. There's no way you can find any dictionary meaning of it. And the next guy came, and he spelled something even much more longer, more important. And the one with the longest spelling was the one that the people would applaud as the one who won it. So, sorry? He was the champion. So it wasn't just a physical expression. Of course, there was sexual exhibition too. That one band would challenge the other one in terms of who could whine the most. And the people again judged the winner by clapping and so on. And there's a special group of men who used to go on the hands and on the head, and that's how they went and won all the competition from Montrose, as far as I can remember. So it was really fun. I mean, Jab Jab, as I said, it really helped to smash a lot of the barriers that we had, the class barriers. It's very inclusive, and today, in terms of economics, you can play Jab Jab for almost next to nothing. All you have to do is to show up. If you think of Trinidad, it's expensive costumes that you have to buy. You go to Brazil, expensive. You go to New York, it's thousands of dollars for a little costume and thing, not very skimpily dressed. But all you have to do is to just show up in Grenada, and a guy say, you want to play? You say, yes, you take out your clothes, and you get your costume for free. So it's a very economical way to enjoy yourself and to enjoy Carnival. I stop here for now. Thanks. Yes.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much. So I want to come now to Mr. Thomas Iraq, Lafayette Jab. So talk to me about your experience.
Good evening to each and everyone here. Right. Yeah, so I'm here to represent the Jab in general, but still say my community Lafayette Jab. Alright? So when I say Lafayette, we go back still, as Dr. mentioned, the French and different colony had been taking the toll, right, on the black people, right? So I here now to mention, well, the Lafayette Jab part of it, right? And Lafayette Jab is one of the, so far, is one of the most resistance jab in the country for now, right? Started to play from 1973, yeah, from 1973, which Dr. Martin mentioned, the job moved from years to years over the period of time, right? So started in 1973, move on, and then take a break in 1976, and then move on to play from 1974 again, right? 1974, we started until now, right? So Lafleur job resists against many of the systems, as I say, from the government mentioned. As he mentioned, that the government said no job in 1973. And Lafleur job started from there, right? It started from Lafleur, Moncton, go Parklet, come back down, Maribo, Byland, LaFosse, Birch Grove, St. James, Ladig, onto Munich, Mount Carmel, Mackay, Soubise, Grenville, and back Lafleur on foot, right? On foot. No transportation, it's just more than the rhythm of the drum and the chant. That is part of the element of the job. All right, so we could see in them time the transport was just the element of the job. The chant, the drum, the spellings, right? And these things carry us through. Whole day, job on foot. We call it like village mass in them time, right? We move from village to village and we pass it on and we keep chanting down the system which keep us in exploitation of slavery, colonialism, right? Whole day, we does it like that. Until now, we keep doing the same thing. Carrying, well, the elements of the job. You see the chain, the hands, the shell, the chant, the drums, the spelling, right? As the historians say. We spell in entertaining manner. We don't spell in English, but we spell in Jabish. You know, so.
Can we get an example?
Okay. As you know, say the colonial system is one of the systems that keep we in slavery, right? So we go use the noun. We go spell people like the colonial system. So we go spell colonial, right? So we say capital. Capital is mean the captain of the job, right? So we call on the captain. Say capital. Capital. One laugh and a stop. Ha, right? Because we're serious. Okay, then we say class, head of what spelling? Heads up. All right? So we go spell colonial again. We say England. And France. They from a co. To see. Black man. Lean. And far. That's colonial. Yes, that's colonial. All right? That's all the job spell. We don't spell in English, we spell in job. It's always mocking at the system and resisting against the system, so we do it like that. Okay? All right. We come back again. We're dealing with the noun still, so noun represent people, places, and things. We're going to spell palmis. Right? So you say, Massa, going home with his slave pen. He take Mr. Paul. He beat him. He pong his penis. And he miss. That is palmis. Yes. All right, so that's how the job spell is spelling. Jabi. Okay?
So that's palmis.
That's palmis. I mean, we could spell it in different ways, you know. So I come back and again because, you know, one word could have different meaning, different song. Yeah. So we're going to say, spell palmis again. All right? You say, Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul. And your mother was having a romantic feast. He hug. He love up. He rub up. He wine. He make two juke. And he miss. Alright, so that's how we spell palmis. Alright. So, you know, you will find all them things around from Lafleur job, which came from the original job from time to time. As the historians say, job is to spell and keep the people entertained, right? And so we go on up till now in Lafleur, keeping the job flag high. We resist against the system again, against Gary's system in 73. All right, we come back and we keep playing. We resist against the system, the NNP system. When Dr. Kidd said there is no job, right? That is in the COVID time. right? And in that time, you find the most amount of job in Lafayette too, because then when the war locked down, Lafayette played job, and we chant like Dr. Kitty playing bad, one among the job, okay? We come back again, we say, well, jab is the cure for corona. Okay, so we use it like that, so, and we keep on going on and on until this day. Again, we use this again in 2019 when the whole world locked down again. We keep playing jab, and Lafayette was the center for jab, right? Expressing yourself and resisting against the same system which colonized our ancestries and tried to keep us, in oppression.
So help me to understand, the younger people in the band, do they understand this, like the spelling that you just mentioned? Do they understand this?
But some, I would say full 100, but some clearly understand, and as the job culture goes on, hopefully we know they will learn it, because we pass it on to some of the youths and them in the school, all right? Well, sometimes the school had a edu fest, right? And the school had a edu fest, and them asked me to really come forward and pass on the spelling. They gave me a couple of words, like, such like evolution, kite, edu fest, right? Education, and well, I work on it. I did some spellings. You see, like evolution. You see, whenever we playing jab, charcoal, tar, and all I is lotion. That's how we spell evolution. All right. Again, we come back. We spell educate. Right? Educate. Master Ed, he pushed us to the edge. We did not fall no skate. He teach the computer and give us pencil and slate. That's educate. All right? So you see in that form, we just keep on, we spell, we educate, but we keep mocking at the system which try to make us feel that we not educate, we don't, and we stupidity. Right? So we does it in that way. We don't spell in English for them, but we spell in Jabish. All right?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, but
So one can ask, where did that come from? We actually do have a speech mass, which is the Pero Grenade in Trinidad. It still existed in Trinidad, and it did stuff like this. So they would ask to spell words, and it would spell it in that way, not in a direct way that you would spell, So not in English. So I've always wondered, where did that come from? Where's the origin of that? Is it making fun or ridiculing the educational system? Or was it, we had a time, and the fact that they have this big book, we had a time where up until the 1950s, even the 1960s, where in church, the Mass was in Latin. Nobody understood what the priest was saying. And I'm wondering if that is connected to the mimicking the way the words were spelled, because nobody really understood what was being said. So that developed from that. I don't know, but that's something I've always wondered.
Okay, it come because the job was mimicking against the system, right? Which try to make we feel that we don't and we stupid, right? So we show them in that form that we are not no stupid. Because if you listen to the spelling, what we spell for them, it have a message. It have a message, right? And if you're bright, you're going to pick up the message. Okay, so then that's where it really come from, by showing, mocking at the system, and in a theatric form. Like, if from emancipation, we come out like street theater, and we come out and we display in this kind of form to the system.
thank you very much. Thank you so much. I want to go on to Mr. Nelson now to make your input in the conversation.
Good evening, everyone. So far, so very good. I would like to start by with the name. And I must say that all the elders I knew before, they use yay. The name jab to describe that masquerade, that is not the name that the people use originally. They use yay. So I also want to say, maybe from the beginning, that I believe wholeheartedly that what we now call jab jab is a Grenadian masquerade. And I say that to say that just recently, for the African Liberation Day, we had a group of persons coming out of Nigeria. And great number of them, all of them had white clothes. And they had white clothes. They were not playing cricket, but they had white clothes. I am saying that to say not everybody that is in black is actually playing jab. And I would qualify that as I go. I would also want to stay on cricket to say that Devon Smith or Ral Lewis and the one that is playing now, 2020 Fletcher, right? They can leave here and go to Pakistan, they can go to India, and they can play cricket. The reason why I'm saying all that is because cricket has certain rules. When Iraq mentioned about the tools, he mentioned, he used the word elements of the jab. I want to say the tools of the jab. The tools of the jab is very unique. The characteristics of the Grenadian jab is unlike any other. So what we have is a Grenadian jab. It is uniquely ours. And there is no, sorry, I don't want to go that far, but we have a jab. And the tools of the jab are the shells. And when Dr. Angus mentioned about Negmaron, or even Lancet cod that is in Haiti, or Nyang Nyang in Cameroon, they don't have the tools that we have. All of them don't have shells. They may have one or two. Some of them may have horns, but the jab in Grenada consistently, we have the shells, we have the chains, we have the coffin, we have the horns, we have the posy, we have the drums, and our chant is unique. Our chant is always anti-establishment. The jab is always against the state, or it speaks about some level of vulgarity. So our chant is always about the state, or it speaks some level of vulgarity. Our dress code also at many times fancy wearing women underwear. That is kind of getting old now. You don't see much of that, but that was a pattern that was always there in jab. And when Mr. Bola mentioned about the book was indeed called the Bible. So the jab was spelling on the Bible. And that is very, very significant because the jab is an experience. The jab existed outside of the status quo. The jab was always in confrontation, in always opposition to the status quo. So the jab from the very beginning was never something that was incorporated in Carnival as the regular band. So you may have any one of the fancy band, Apache, what we call Apache, or the Veco that came late, the Fancy Mass, the Sailor Mass. All of them, some of them had segments, section. They could have played, they could have parade. The jab was never part of that. The jab could not incorporate. The jab never had sections. So you had Sailor Mass and you had different sections for the Sailor Mass. And I see some photos of all the Sailor Mass. And you see different sections. When Ricardo brought out his band, or Antoine, or Helen, Maria, and they bring out the band, they have sections. The jab never had sections. The jab always remained unique in the one band. They cannot join with any other band. They never join. And there are certain things, earlier on before we started this presentation, I was asked if the song of the jab is the same. And the reason why I use Devon Smith and Ral Lewis and Fletcher, and they can leave and go and play cricket in Pakistan or in India. The JAB now in Grenada is at a stage where the song of the JAB in New York on Labor Day, or in England, or in Canada, or in Belmont, St. Patrick, Hermitage, Tivoli, the Mention Lafayette, Munich, Latin, Telescope, all the song, the real JAB song is the same. If you close your eye, if you are not looking, you cannot differentiate the difference between that. And if you look at all the other masqueraders, like the Lancet card, the whole characteristic is completely different. They may run and they dirty their hand, and they just brand you on the back, particularly persons wearing a white shirt or white t-shirt. But in Grenada, our drum and everything is unique. It's completely different. And so I want to establish, that is from my opinion, that Jab is a Grenadian masquerade. Other persons probably is black. I also want to say something as it relates to the name Jab. Our whole socialization taught us that from the very beginning that nothing about us was good. Our skin was too black, our nose too wide, our lips too thick, our drums was devilish. Every practice and religious practice we came out of Africa was considered to be obia or devilish. Nothing we had was considered good. And today you still see that impact. So what happened, W.E. Du Bois described it as, what was the term? The term would come. But whereby people are dual sort of consciousness, whereby you are who you are, you believe you are that, but then you take on the personality of something else. So at some time we want to be conforming to the system that was brought onto us, and then on the other hand, we rebel. So somebody that is a public servant and is there, or a police might be there to uphold the rules and the laws and the regulation, and then that person is on the street in black, in tar, using obscenities, dressing up with women bikinis, etc. So that is a sort of dichotomy of that person's personality. And one day you're so upright, and then the next day you're in the JAB and you're doing this. JAB has had a level of evolution whereby the JAB was always at all class. It's only now, and we would go through the stages, it's only now JAB is somewhat accepted. For a matter of fact, I heard the Prime Minister say he had JAB in Parliament. He's a JAB. But the JAB was always anti-establishment, and no so-called proper mother wanted their daughter to be with a JAB. It was just not something you would want. So the JAB, the person to play a JAB, was someone that had a psychological makeup where they totally rejected the system. They rejected the fact that, and probably let me just backtrack and say something here, that I believe that the word devil mask was not something, and I would come to a statement Angus made, not something that we call ourselves, but it's a phrase that was given to us. Because, as Angus said, there was no devil in West Africa. They didn't know that term. It was a European term. And we as a people, we are not known, I'm talking about we as Caribbean black, not known to openly have any church or organization to worship the devil. So at some time when we are called devil mask, I don't think we deliberately decide that we are a devil mask. But what we did was to mimic, was to say you think I'm black, and if you think I'm black and you're totally against me, then here is blackness. You think I'm evil, and here are the tools of the devil. And everything that the JAB did, the shell, the drums that was at one time banned and not accepted as a good instrument, the color of the skin, the idea that the white authority, the church, the priest, who was the source of authority and morality in the country, you now have a group of people spelling on the Bible. So you're talking about a serious heresy as far as the church is concerned. And you know that in these days, when you grow up and based on what you do, your parents would call you a name or two, your parents would call you some names. And a lot of persons in our village have names because of what they did. So the DJAB, we were called devil worshippers because, in a sense, we were showing them that we totally reject this sense of morality, the authority, the whiteness. If you see me as totally even, nothing I have, you consider it, then I'm saying, okay, then here I am. Here I am in your face. So the DJAB was the ultimate source of resistance growing up. Let me just also say, take DJAB. and the songs, there's a classic one where the DJAB would sing, jab, jab, cussing, no bad word. And, so the DJAB coming out, let us say from Lafayette or Tivoli, and they would be coming on and jab, jab, cussing, no bad word. And from the time they reach in the police station, in front of the police station, she's laughing, she knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, from the time they reach in front of the police station, the whole song changed, and it is whatsoever the police, whatsoever they threaten the police. But again, the DJAB, the whole defacing of the building was done to his attack on the whole establishment. It was an attack on the whole establishment. So the DJAB in Grenada was, again, just in opposition to everything that we know as normal. They just turn it around. There was what we, finally, before I close up, because the DJAB was an all-caste, in 73, when the premier then said that no DJAB, you found that the opposition, the political machinery at that time, the opposition, the NGM, I didn't want to know if I should say that, the NGM, used the DJAB to chant against Gary. And the chant was, Gary suing no jab, but NGM say jab, right? So that was one of the first time. But you see what happened? People that were now established, part of the elites, part of the middle class, for the first time found themselves playing jab. So that was the first time that these people start associating with the common or the downtrodden, or for want of a better word, the lumpens in society, and they join with them to play jab and use the jab as a political tool. Later on, thereabout again in 1976, a similar thing happened, but again the third one was again in 1991, when Mass International came up and they did that song in tribute to jab. Now, I just want to clarify because I've heard different things. The jab song is unique. The drum, I am not a musician, so I can't tell you if they're playing A or they're playing B, whatsoever, but I know the song of the jab tune, the song from the time I was a little boy to now is unique. But what Mass International did was to do a song in tribute to jab. And that again allowed a lot of more people to dance. Although it was not a real authentic song, but they were able to dance to a song that seemed like it was almost like a jab song. And then later on, you had Tivoli drummers. We started playing in tongue just after that with a guy named Super, and Glenn Forsyth and those guys, and I forget the next one name. He was very instrumental. And we started playing jab on the truck in tongue. And later on, you have people like Talpri that came up and start doing tribute to songs, and others follow. And then you have people like Slum. And then later on, you have the priests, Father Gerard Paul as a priest who played jab. And then you have our prime minister who played jab. So jab now has lost its outcast nature, and now is accepted in midstream. So I think I would stop here for a while to say that there has been a transition in terms of what it used to be and what is now. But I just also want to say the Yei was based on theatrics, more on theatrics, on a display, like a street theater. So you find that if you look at where groups like Lafayette and Belmont and Capital and Tivoli and La Pucci, they are going these days, they are playing in the village, but they also have the theatrics. Last year or the year before, Lafayette had a boat. Before, people used to have a box, and when you open that box, they always, pay a penny to see in that box. And what you see in that box was totally, totally creative. But the jab was always anti-establishment and always vulgar. So anything you see in that box is vulgar. So that was the jab then. And it was based on display, how 4 or 7 guys would reach in a junction and the kind of work they would do, the display. And of course, the waist action. I don't know many jabs have that kind of waist action these days, but they're playing. But so I think now there's an effort to kind of go back and to capture. So there are more drum groups emerging, playing jab with drum, and I really welcome that. There's a lot more to see, but let me talk again. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. That's a lot of information. Thank you so much. I want to come back to Mr. Bowler for a second, because in the and to kind of expound on what Mr. Nelson would have said, you mentioned in your introductory part that there was the smashing of the barriers. Can you tell me what would have contributed to that? Because of course we know, in those days there were classes and all that, but on that day everybody just came together. What, even though it was being referred to as a devilish, what caused people to still want to be, people from that strata, if we could call it that, to be part of the jab?
That's a very important question, and there may be several reasons for that. But jab has become very popular, and people love popularity. It's where the action is, that's where you're going to go. And despite we had, Brother Nelson talk about sailor mass and so on, people no longer want that kind of fancy stuff. They want to go down and dirty. They want to go and just enjoy themselves. So I think what DJAB is providing is a display of what you can do. And lots of young people like to show what they can do. If you go to the soca monarch kind of stuff, they dance and they give you what they have. But if you really want to see what's happening, what they can really offer, you have to come to Juve Morning, see a jab band, and they just let go, as we say, they just release themselves. But I think over the years, from 1979 onwards, there was a sort of a consciousness building among young people and the nation. A couple of us will try our best to educate the nation into having pride in what is authentically ours. And I think, as the both men here said, that jab somewhat got us into that area of national consciousness and pride. And we build on that. Dr. Martin said that, Angus Martin said that the evangelicals try their best to demonize jab and to, make it look as if it's something very bad and devilish. But over the years, I think we have override that whole situation, and people are accepting it for what it really is. It's the mass of the people. And from 79 to now, that the people were the ones that we actually push forward. And even up to today, the masses, what really counts for us. So it gives me great pride, for example, to see that the class barrier has been broken down. As a social revolutionary, I'm happy to see that bankers come out to play. I see them in the bank on Friday. And the carnival come Monday, And the same beautiful young lady, "Oh, good afternoon, sir, how may I help you? What are you doing today, withdrawing or depositing?" Very fine language. And Monday morning, when I see them in Granville, St. George's, I have to laugh. In that they can feel free enough, liberated enough to just come and really express themselves. So I think the popularity of JAB, the freedom, the liberation that it brings, is what have so many young people getting involved. And speaking about the class barriers, I'm something really amazed when I see the students from SGU, and they don't look like me, fighting to get some time the body to play maths, to play jab. It shows that it's become all-encompassing, break the color barrier, you break class barrier, and everybody just have this oneness. As much as we love the Sailor Mass, I remember Lou Smith, before he died, said he really wanted to play a Sailor Mass before he died. But he didn't get a chance to do that because Jab just took over the whole carnival season. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to come back to Mr. Thomas. I know there has been concern over the years about the use of like serpents, animals, because I think some people are concerned that there's cruelty to animals taking place. What can you say about that?
Well, my touch on that is like the serpents represent number one. The system makes us feel that serpent is always the devil, right? So the system tells us that we are the devils, right? So on this carnival day, we come out to display, right? To mock at the system, right? We bring in the serpent, and they say, well, we're devils, look devils. So that's where we portray the serpent, right? And again, we always come out and make them feel, we use the animals, okay, like the serpent and the frog, to bring a little fear to the system, because we are always showing out to them that, we are not what they say we be. Okay, so we're mocking and we're showing them these things that belongs to them. That is their part of it. That is not our part as black people, right? Because we know say that black is always beautiful, right? And we keep resisting to show that we is it, because as Mr. Nelson said, that when the system took a toll on the African, it make us feel that everything we had, our nose was too flat, our hair was too woolly, our language was vulgar, right? And those things, which they try to make us feel that we are nothing, so we keep displaying those things, right? With our chant, come back with chant. We educate, jab children, educate, always only never late, jab children, educate, and that is why we guard you with jab children, educate. We have a jab certificate. So, we keep chanting those things to them, right? Not because we're black and greasy. Jab children, educate. Don't take us for no damn donzy. Jab children, educate. We have a jab degree. Jab children, educate. So don't take us for no damn stupid, That's how we have it. So. All right?
Thank you very much. Dr. Martin, I want to come back to you. Based on all that has been said, in your own words, tell me, what do you think is responsible for the appeal? I know Mr. Abola explained it, but what do you think is responsible for the appeal that we're seeing now? Because we know they say 100,000 jab. We see it on the carnage. We see how it looks.
I think with culture constantly changes. Like we could trace jab for over 100 years. In that period, it's taken many forms. We talk about what we called it, and that has changed as well. How we play it, that has changed. And I think as our society changes, it's reflected with what happened in the 70s. It took a very political, when we saw what happened in 73 and again in 76, and it became part of the politics. So I think as our society changes, jab survives because it has been able to change with the society. And I think we see in 73, when we had the first set of middle class women who were able to play. As you have said, women were playing before, women from the countryside, but it was not noticed in the same way as when the middle class women, and they were disgraced. You know, they were written up in the newspaper and people took them to task, you know, for playing jab because that was not the thing these nice women would do. You know, so they were taken to task. But it's because of these breaking these boundaries that Evan talked about that we see the evolution. And as these changes in our society basically is changing and the barriers are breaking down. Like I said, the 60s is really when we begin to see Carnival becoming one, because Carnival was definitely on multiple levels. You had Juve, that was poor people. A lot of it happened in the countryside. When on Tuesday afternoon, it was a different set of people on the trucks with their costumes and things like that. People, most Grenadians were spectators to that. But the other Juve stuff was, there were the masquerade. So I think, and it's really in the 70s, I look at it like around 67 when we become a statehood, when we get statehood, that it's really beginning to change. That we're thinking of ourselves as a society, as Grenadian. And I think by time you get to the 70s and all the politics going on, you see those changes manifest themselves and it just gradually goes on from there.
So, is there anybody in the audience who wants to make a comment, ask a question? You have the opportunity to do so. All right, so.
Okay. All right, good evening to all. I hope everybody can hear me. This is a really good talk. I would have liked to see more people here, but that's besides the point. A few things though, the jab spelling. I really love that. One of my uncles who passed within the last few years, he shared a few spellings, and I have them written down someplace. But I think we should make that into a project, like have a book. The Ministry of Culture could work on that, pull out some words and put it down. Because I don't hear that in town. I don't hear that in town. As a child, when I was like 7, 8, and I just started to play jab. I remember, because I grew up with my aunt, so I remember the Sunday night, I used to always pull out an old dress from my aunt, like a frock, as we say. So she would give me like an old one, and I would go and jump behind jab band, right? I remember one year, I was in the band, and I was taking my hand and rub it on a jab and put it on. And the jab he got mad. He said, listen, don't take out my oil. If you want oil, ask. So I put up my 2 hands and full it up of oil. And I put up my oil, and I was like, I tell people as a child, Juve was the best day of the year. I didn't care about birthday or Christmas. Juve, I couldn't sleep the Sunday night. Like, I can't rest. I just waited. And as a little child, going to town with my father, and even after, my teeth knocking because it's cold. But I can't stay home. I want to go. So jab is a national pride. And I really love to see the level it is at now. One of the songs this year asked that we put jab on the national flag. It's a bit much, but it shows where the mass is. The truth is that I would love to see the same thing for the short knee and the vehicle, because these are masses that I love to. So probably jab needs its own day, and we give the others a fair chance. But at the same time, coming back to the start, the spelling, if there's one thing we should really save is that. We have to note it, yeah? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Vaughn?
Right, good afternoon, everyone. All right, I have a couple questions and observations at the same time. Now, I don't think there's a Grenadian who could say they don't know what JAB is. Now, I experienced JAB in tongue, as this gentleman would say. We wouldn't hear about the spellings and all of that because JAB, to me, has become more of a fancy mass in tongue. So I would say the older version of JAB, you don't really get that in tongue. And also some concerns, I would say. As a question was posed tonight on the table, the practice of the involvement of animals, and not just any animal, but I would say all sorts of animals, sorry. Before time, you see a pile of serpent. But right now, I remember I was in a band a couple years back. I saw some Kongori. Then I see some crapo. Then I see a dog. Then I see 5 kittens. So every year I see more and more. This year I might see a 2 horse. A 2 horses might be in the band. But my thing is, knowing how JAB used to be, hearing how it used to be from your parents and your grandparents, they would never tell you about oil. But we're taking oil now and we're dabbing it on animals. And then, obviously, JAB has become so popular, it is an international display. So let's say, for instance, and I would always raise that point. Somebody coming to Grenada for the first time, or not even coming to Grenada, somebody getting involved in Carnival for the first time, and they say, okay, this year in Staying, I'm coming out of my house, let me go and see what our traditional mass entails. And then they would see old oil, they would see crapo, Kongori, all kind of thing in the band. But then, no clear indication as to how the mass supposed to be played. What is the meaning? What are we portraying? What sort of resistance are we putting on the table? Because all we're hearing is JAB is rebellion. But what are we rebelling against? That is a question that must be put on the table. Because right now, JAB is who could do the most thing? Who could do the most of a rebellious thing? It doesn't matter what, but who could do the most extreme thing? And I think for youths growing up, they would miss the whole origin. They wouldn't get the history, forget that. But they wouldn't understand where this JAB thing come out. What this JAB thing is really about. Because every year I hear a pile of DJ on the truck. We wouldn't hear what Mr. Iraq is speaking about, the spellings, the chants. No way, you ain't getting that in tongue. So all we get into our understanding of year after year, especially in tongue, is just a jump up. So JAB just done a jump up now. No respect to the associated struggle, the people who are really trying to preserve it, how it's supposed to really be, how it started, how it's supposed to be continued. It has changed. The question is, do we want that change? Are we allowing that change? Yes, it's fun, but there should be, of course it will evolve, but there should be a level, or I should say, regulations in place that would keep the JAB, for want of a better word, authentic. Keep it how it's supposed to be, how it was meant to be. So, on that note, something as I also would want to say about the chants again. When a band is coming down the road, once you have a DJ truck on the road, forget that. No respect for the band. So all you go hear is just a set of music. That is a part of our culture, yes. But I think there should be right now, it's too much years we have in Carnival, when a JAB band coming down, a shortney band coming down, as we discussed on one of the programs, mic up the traditional mass band, mic up the JAB, cut the music, respect to the traditional mass band. Let us hear the chants. Let somebody experience this for the first time, somebody who haven't that experience for the first time, understand it. Because this thing goes beyond. You remember we are attracting a lot of people, foreigners who would come and spend monies here. They would want to choose whatsoever traditional mass band they would want to be a part of. But if I'm coming to Grenada for the first time, I have 7 different traditional mass bands. We have more. And then I don't have a clue of where you come from, what it is, what we're portraying. Then I don't know which one that will fit me. For instance, the jab, if I go in tongue and I say I want to play jab, I just say, nah, man, people just jumping up, I just go down and jump up. But if I have an understanding of it, where it comes from, what it means, I might say, hey, that is sacred to the people. Maybe I shouldn't jump. Hey, that is sacred to the people. I am a part of that. I want to be a part of that struggle. I want to be a part of that resistance. But with an understanding of what we are rebelling against, what we are putting up a resistance for. So I have a lot of issues and a lot of things to say when it surrounds traditional mass, but more so the jab. So this is my take, and I really want, somebody on the table to give me your input on the introduction of I'm saying it bluntly, animal abuse. Because the same one with the kittens, I understand after that, them kittens die after. Because you can't rub up a whole pile of old oil on animals and expect them to be healthy. Even ourselves, I mean, the old oil, yes, is the easiest thing to get. But is this the healthiest thing? A lot of people go be against that, but that is not how it used to be. That is not what our foreparents used to play with. And point blank, it is not healthy, but it is easy. So these are things we need to discuss in going forward. So this is my take tonight.
Thank you very much, Vaughn. So one of the questions I had for the table is the aspect of the health issue, because I know people want to play the mass. They want to enjoy themselves, but I want to know how we can still safeguard our own health while we enjoy ourselves. But we could deal with that. Let's just address some of the issues that Vaughn would have spoken about, and then we can talk about the health aspect.
You want to do it? Very clear. I think Vaughn was asking a question, what is authentic, what we should allow, and what we should preserve. My response to that is very simple. I don't, culture changes all the time. And so I don't believe we cannot alter, we cannot try to prevent the jab in tongue in particular on the truck. I mean, you have 1,000 guys following, the drums cannot be heard. So I believe it should be allowed without we trying to put anything to say to regulate that. What has been happening though is that it should be known that if people want the authentic expression, they should come up to Grenville or some other part of the rural community. And then in the rural community, we should have areas where and I know angles will like that, but we should have an area where we prevent the DJ from submerging and killing the songs of the drums. Because I can tell you, in the last 3 years, there has been an upsurge of more jab group in Grenada, but is not in tongue. For the last 3 years, there has been less and less jab with drums in tongue, but more of those jabs are staying up in the country and refusing to go in tongue. And I think that had to do with there was a move at one time to what I call urbanized carnival, that everything had to go in tongue. And so that was part of the rebellion, that guys refused to go in tongue and they stay up in the country. And I also believe the offshoot of that is what you have in the Sunday, every Sunday now. For a matter of fact, Lafayette is launching the carnival, the jab band tomorrow. And all the jab bands are now launching, and you have a whole network of very friendly and united groups coming together to give support to each other. And I think it is because of a reaction of some powers to be that is trying to urbanize all aspect carnival. So that is the reaction as it relates to jab. So I wanted to say that. You ask again, what are they rebelling against? And as I said, like everything else, at one time, not just jab, but like pan-Rastafarianism, all those things and them were taboo. I don't so sure what we can do except like what we're doing now. Let people know the origin and what it meant and some of the symbolism and what the symbolism meant. And hopefully people would then interpret it and carry it on in different fashion. But the evolution of the culture is changing in front of us, and I'm not so sure we can do anything else except heighten that, like what we're just doing, that level of awareness. I also want to take a shot at answering the question of animal abuse, again by the same method. It is, for me personally, I understand why they use snake and serpent, why they use serpent before, but I also I understand now why we should not use serpent in the jab before, because we live in a sort of community that affect the consciousness, the awareness of so many other people that see that as abuse. So while we can explain that yes, it was in a sense synonymous with showing that you think I'm evil and here is evil, so we put it in your face, I think we reach a time where we can cease and desist from using not just serpent but all other animals, live animals, which is a risk to us. So I think that is important. As it relates to the jab and health of the jab itself, I'm not so sure if a little tar on the day would do much harm. So I believe if I don't see much harm in the guys playing tar, so I might differ on the other members of the head table. But I don't see much harm being done. A couple streets get, the road get tar and dirty. A couple guys and clothes get dirty. But in terms of serious health risks, I have yet to see a study that shows that guy playing jab 2 days and then the tar did this and the tar did that to them. I don't know if there is a proof or so. Then I would embrace it. But as of now, I look at tar, I don't see creating much harm. That my own take. But again, I'm speaking out of my ignorance of not knowing or having any kind of detailed research or being exposed to any such research that shows that the tar creates some kind of disease also.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas, you want to make a point? Go ahead.
Before we reach to the oil, right? The ancestors used like the molasses, right, which was healthy, right? From molasses, they use the charcoal, which was naturally healthy again, to the tar which is asphalt, is a healthy thing for we still, right? But I mean, I'm not against those who are trying to use the oil, but then health-wise, the oil is not the best of health, right? Because it is from burnt engine particles and things, which is kind of dangerous to our skin. So, I mean, when we celebrate it, we have to, keep your awareness, right? Keep your awareness and make sure we stay in line, because then we're not just celebrating to really farm the food, but we have to stay alive, right? Because the job is something which keep resisting against the system. And we're resisting against the system because we've been oppressed and brought to slavery. So we keep resisting, right? So, we have to use the things which is important. Like, again, as my man said, for the education of the spellings, the job spelling, and the meaning to be established among our nation, right? So in doing so, I mean, culturally, I will ask the system to really bring these things back to the school and take it from there. And any assistance, they could look for the traditional job, come to Lafayette, Tivoli, and all them places, and then we will get the real thing from the job, right? And again, when we spell because to make the system know that we are not done again as saying it. We are not no stupidity, right? So we're spelling with the real meaning and a message to the system. All right, so one element of the job is the spelling, right? So we spell and make them feel okay. Jab, we go spell, okay. We go spell Africa. No, we go spell, let me see, we have it, but then sometimes just trying to bring it on, we just kind of too much, what I mean? But then we spelling, because when we say your mother, we don't mean your mother personally, but we're chanting on the system, the colonial system. So we will say your mother, we put your mother, right? That is the colonial system, which is England, because they claim them is a mother country, All right? So, you go say, you go spell like me and the mother. You go spell character. All right? No, we go spell mongols. You say, capital. Me and the mother was running in character. She fell and she turned bruise. That mongols. All right? So we spell in that form now to really, you know, you all get a message.
Yes.
Right? She fell and she turned bruise. That's mongols. All right? So, you could carry on and on, you know, but then they'll continue so all the time, right?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Mr. Bola, one make
Yes, just on the health issue, it is a concern for people in the medical field. I think we are told that the skin is the largest organ in the body. It absorbs quite a lot of stuff. And if you put in oil in your system, it gets into your pores. Now, just for 2 days, but maybe later on, if you do it too often, you should have some effect. What I do know as a young boy, before they put any tar on your body, every job had to go and get some lard. And lard was real pig fat in there, not fancy vegetarian stuff. Now, when you pass a piece of lard, it's on your skin.
Yeah.
We're making bread and things these days, fancy vegetarian lard, and I mean, that ain't doing nothing. But pig fat long time, the real lard in the big pan, and you dab your skin, and then you put the oil. It does not penetrate into your pores. Doesn't happen anymore, as I said. Once you show up, I'm looking at Hermitage job lunch last week, Sunday, I think it was. And people just come and they say, you want to play? Yes. They take out the shirt, they had a bra on and boot. You know, they're all go on. But we need to go back to the practice of protecting your pores by putting the lard. Even if you get vegetarian lard, it's no problem. A vegetarian shortening, you want to call it that. And you know, put that on your skin to protect your health. The animals, of course, is a serious concern. I saw a fellow on Sunday had a chicken, and he had tar on the chicken. You know, plain job too. But then he told the guy who was passing around with his mic, he said, we're going to eat that just now. Because it's already moisturized. So they're going to cook that after the lunch is over. So if that's the case, this is the excuse. But, you know, to have the little chicken and the little kittens going out there and they're dying afterwards, this is certainly, definitely unacceptable. And the issue of what are we resisting or rebelling against. And I think what we have been hearing here this evening, Mr. Thomas talked about exploitation and oppression. These are important words. I think Comrade Nelson spoke about anti-establishment, you know? And of course, Wesley Angus also spoke about the resistance and the very origin of DJAB to the present. So, over the years, DJAB represent a resistance against the system. From the plantation, that's the only time they had freedom. The master didn't come and play with them on that day. No one had to order them around. The overseer wasn't there, the driver wasn't there. It was just we mass, our mass, we think, and they had total control. At some point, I think I guess Martin spoke about the politics being involved in DJAB, 73 and onwards. It was used to get popular support in 1973, because you have to understand that Inagiri was popular among the peasants, as we call them, the poor people, estate workers. And if you wanted to win an election then, you had to embrace the culture of the masses. And this would have been the children of the poor. I remember Gary telling a very close friend of mine that one thing hurt him the most to understand how the children of his supporters could turn against him. Couldn't take it, because he loved the parents so much. And all of a sudden, the children start to oppose him. You know why? They oppose the system. They oppose police brutality, as we were told at the time. You join in and you fight against that type of system. Not just the colonial powers at the time, but the police represented, you know, the system, and they fought against that. And it's what's actually happening today, that a lot of young people are still fighting against the system, probably unconsciously so, but they feel that they lack power. They become hopeless. The only time they can really have real power in their hand is when they have some tar in their body and they're expressing themselves with a drum. They can rub against you, they can rub against your building, nothing you can do. They say you paid or pay same damn thing or that to you anyway. That is power for them as young people. And say what you want. Every human being has a desire to express some form of authority and power. And DJAB, on Carnival Day, they get a chance to do that. And Tuesday, Wednesday morning, that power is taken away. You go to the police station and they can't touch you on Carnival Day because you're powerful as a DJAB. Nobody could stop you. That's an expression of power. And I must just close by saying that what's happening today in terms of the politics, as we all mentioned here, anyone who wants to be a popular politician would definitely have to embrace the DJAB. If you want to win and you want to be popular, that's where the power is, that's where the forces are. Find yourself and gravitate towards them. Whether you like them or not, you have to go in that direction to make it. And don't let them know I say that, but that's the trend today. Thank you.
I guess I would like to address, Vaughn said quite a bit. I would like to address specifically the idea that we are here because we think that DJAB and all of the other traditional masquerades are important, and we want to preserve them in some form. We want to preserve the history of them as well. So I think the idea of making space for traditional masquerade is something we need to consider, because we think it's important to maintain our traditional masquerade in whatever form that is. It is going to change, but whatever form we want to preserve some aspect. 200 years from now, we hope they're still playing DJAB. You know, what it's going to look like, we have no idea. But they wouldn't do that if we don't create space for DJAB today. If DJAB is allowed to disappear because they don't feel that they can perform, express themselves, it's going to disappear. We've had many masquerades that have just disappeared over the years. These are the ones that we're left with. And we think it's important to keep them, or to keep some aspect of them, allow them to fully express these parts of our culture. As we said, the DJAB is resistance, the shortening and all of these things that express different aspects of the evolution of our society. The chants that they have, VECO used to have very popular chants as well, We need to record some of them. We need to try our best to record them so that people are aware that, the spelling and all of those kind of things. That's what this is about. It's important to us. I, as a historian, as an archivist, I want that anybody could go into the archives and say, hey, I want to learn about DJAB, and I want to know the different forms. What is Ye? Before talking to Nelson and others, I had no idea that there was this other form. Growing up in town, I could tell you what DJAB was in what I experienced, but I had no idea until other people started talking about this other thing. And then I recognized that there were multiple types of DJAB from different places. Every locality has its different way of expressing that. And these are some of the things that I am interested in preserving, at least recording all of those things. And that's why we have multiple people up here talking, people who have experienced it and can tell us things about it. So that's one of the important things, I think, why we're doing this. And again, the idea that people may not know, people just play DJAB, we should be able to talk more about it and have I remember there was, I think maybe a few years ago, I saw a recording with Iraq talking about the different elements, of jab, what these different things mean. We need to do more of that and populate it on social media because that's where a lot of young people are. We may not be there, but they're there, so we have to meet them where they are. So I think those are some of the things. I think the animal abuse was well addressed. I think it's something that we have to seriously consider because jab should not be known as an abuse of animals. That is not something that people should remember jab for. So I think it's something that we should seriously think about. But I think for me, one of the most serious things is that we have to create spaces. We can't say that because we have huge DJ sets, because they are important to the way we celebrate jab today, but it cannot drown out the traditional masquerade, because the short knee has the same complaint.
All of them.
So if they cannot practice, then we don't allow them to have the space. That means we don't want the traditional mass. So.
Thank you very much. Yes. We're getting ready to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, but any final questions and comments, we'll accommodate you now.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Division of Culture, for this amazing presentation here on jab, one of the most popular traditional masses that we have here in Grenada. I do have a question as it pertains to maybe the name and the origin, because I kind of get two different explanations here by Dr. Martin and Dr. Nelson. So Dr. Martin, you were talking about it was a portrayal of the devil, all right? It was a mimic of the devil, all right? And growing up, I used to hear that they were mimicking the slave masters and calling them devil and portraying them as that. But I didn't hear that today. And Dr. Nelson, you were saying that it was like an exaggeration of how the outsiders viewed black people. So you see us as black, you're calling us black, well, we're going to show you black, and they darken themselves. Oh, you think that we're the devil, we're going to show you devil, and they wore the horns with the helmets and all of that. So I'm just kind of in limbo wondering, is it both? Is it, or did the meaning change over time? Did it start off as portraying devil, and then later on it morphed into, okay, that's how you see us, we're going to show you that? Like, I just want to, a little clarity. Thanks.
Well, here's my take. So we know for sure that jab and how it developed in Grenada, in the sense that it stemmed from a portrayal of the devil. And my take on it, we were not there when it started. So it's really hard, and we have no information from the people who started this jab. But my take on it is that slavery ends, the humiliation and all of that of slavery. The one character that they're aware of, because it's biblical, and people are familiar with a lot of the biblical characters. And Carnival was part of the church calendar. The church endorsed Carnival. Carnival was a celebration of, we say, the sins of the flesh, because you are about to enter into Lent. We expect certain things of you in Lent, so get rid of it now, because once Lent starts, you gotta go by the book. So Carnival was part of that, the church calendar, and expressing all kind of things. The devil was very important in the Catholic faith. The devil, going to hell, those were things that were drummed into Catholics. So the devil played a role. And I think once slavery ended, the people who started to play, playing the devil, the character of the devil, what it represented. Like I say sometimes, the devil is a character that stuck his finger up at the big guy. For them, they were able to say, I am playing the devil and I'm going to scare you, in the sense that it gave them a certain authority, a power that they did not have before in playing that character. And remember, back then, the devil, that character was Jab, or whatever it was called in the beginning, was always on the periphery, always on the outside. It's only in the 1970s that we see Jab really change. But it was normally one devil with a chain around them, held by the imps, which they didn't have the horns and stuff on their head. They were blackened, they were younger, they were smaller, and they would hold the chain. And they were the ones that were controlling the devil. And that's what, and they had tails. The devil had tail, the pitchfork, and those kind of things when I was growing up. When I saw some, so it has changed. The 70s, the change in our society brought about, but I think at the core of it, the devil was a character that represented something against authority. And because religion was important in everybody's life, that was a character that everybody knew pretty well. And I think everything else about it is interpretation. Everything else that we talk about it is interpretation. Because we don't know what the original people were intending. We think it's about protest because, they pick a character that was definitely anti-authority, kind of thing. So we see it as that. We interpret it. All the things about people falling into vats of molasses, those are all interpretations. Because if you fell into a vat of molasses, you were dead. And we actually know that happened to people. We actually have newspaper talking about people falling into vats of molasses because they were so tired that they just fell in. So I don't think anybody wanted to fall into a vat of molasses. I think the talk about who was the devil, was it the enslaved or their descendants, or was it the slave master? I think all of these are interpretations, how we interpret it. And if you play it, you express it in whatever way you can label it. Just like you draw a painting, you paint something and put it out there, people can interpret it in multiple different ways based on their experiences and how they feel. So I think a lot of that is pretty open. We can state certain factual things, but after that, it's really up to you in how you interpret it. Hope that helps.
I think for me there are two things. The first one is that, as I said earlier on, we were basically bombarded with the information that everything about us was evil. And I also use the term about this dual consciousness, whereby we exist as one, but also there's a tend to put all the information we get. So the church in particular, which was the symbol of our authority and morality, and everything about the church was, the priest was white and everybody else was white. So we were portrayed as less than. For matter of fact, we were not even in assumption, we were told that we were 3/5 human. So we were not even a full human being. So we were basically portrayed as evil. And in order to be enlightened, we had to appear as if we followed all the rules and regulations and norms and characteristics of the Europeans. But what happened is that in part of the rebellion was to say, you think I am evil? So it was mimicking. It was saying, you think I'm evil? My lips is this, I am the devil. Everything you see about me is the devil, so here is it in your face. So we portray that part as a sense of protest. Yes, it is interpretation, but it's very consistent with how an oppressed people would behave. Meaning that if somebody is always at you, you either try to do everything to please them, or you go totally contrary. Right? Somebody say, look at you, you're looking good, look at you here, what will happen, what do you do? So you either try to straighten your hair, try to get cream and thing to whiten your, to whiten your skin, try to do surgery if you get a chance to thing your nose, because you want to be like. Or the other hand, you to say, to hell was you, damn you. You think I'm evil, here is it. So your full blackness come into play. So the Rastafarian hairstyle was taboo. Afro was banned in school, it was taboo. Everything that you look like us was taboo. Drums was taboo. So we saying, okay, you condemn us, everything about us, so here in your face. So it was a sense of protest, it was a sense of rebellion, and your sense was saying into your face. That's my interpretation of how the whole idea of the DJAB come out and the various tools. Nobody want to, except if you have a really strong conviction, nobody just want to live on the fringes of society and everybody castigating you except you're very sure that you don't want to associate with the norm. And again, if you come back to something that is more recent, like Rastafarianism, when Rastafarians were unable to go to school, they couldn't do this, yet they maintained their lifestyle, their hairstyle, the way they locks. The police attacked them, but they smoked the weed. They believe in Haile Selassie. They say fire for Babylon and fire on Rome, because they did not accept the system that tell them they were less than. So they were looking for something in terms of that reflect more their identity. So the Rastafarianism, think about the Rastafarianism and the portrayal, where they basically were outcast because they stood up for the belief, and DJAB, that was outcast because they say, I refuse to accept what you are giving me. And I think if you understand it in that light, you realize where we are coming from.
All right, so we have 2 more questions with gentlemen. I think Mr. Bowler wants to make a quick comment, so go right ahead, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, just on the issue of origin, we just have to remember that DJAB is actually very authentically Grenadian. We said before, it evolved, its evolution from the estates in particular. And we have to remember that. Unlike the fancy masks like sailors and cowboy, these things were imported, although it was, from Trinidad. But DJAB was the evolution in some of its origin from the grassroots people, from the estates into the villages and to what it is today. So it just, no matter how historically you want to make it, from France and from here and from there, just remember in some of the actual routes, the what do you call this, the center route, the middle route goes down. We can trace it right back to the different villages and to the estates. I think Dr. Martin said in St. George's, you don't really see and hear all the stuff. It tells us something that is lacking something down there that you don't have up here. And up here is where it actually came from, the plantation itself, and we have to remember that origin of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowler. Gentlemen, questions?
Yeah, sure. So this question is directed to Mr. Nelson. When you were giving your presentation, you mentioned a name that DJAB had before it was called DJAB as it is today. I didn't quite catch it, and also I'm not quite sure how to spell it. Could you tell me a bit more about that name, please?
Well, I said the name is called, the DJAB was called before Yay. Only Yay. I spell it like Y-A-Y-E. I'm not so sure. That's just how I interpret it phonetically. Right? I'm going to put it up? Yeah. Right. So, but it was more, it was not as it is today, because there used to be any big banner JAB as we know it from maybe I would say maybe the 80s. You start seeing some really large bands. I mean, for me, grew up in Tivoli, you had a generally large band, but I used to love to see the band from Montrose when they're coming down from that hill. So that was my real good memory of Montrose guys having a very, very large band. But prior to that, it was a small group of guys, 7, 10, 12 maybe, and they would play, and they were always outcasts. And they always was very heavily invested in theatrics. They had the cart, they pulled the cart door, the coffin on the wheel, and they had the display. And those guys and them was just very artistic or creative in the movement. Yes.
Maybe we can ask our friend behind the camera to explain more of Yale, because he had a pretty good explanation of it.
Yes.
So maybe you can have him.
Yes. So, can you put the camera on him?
Go ahead.
He was doing a good job just now there.
Let him talk about his, because he had a really good description of Ye.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's a good thing we touch on Ye, because I'm thinking, I'm asking myself if it has a Creole link or a patois link, right? Yes. As I see myself as a Creole activist, one, I must say I'm happy to see the spelling being DJAB. Only within the last few days, I had a little clash with a person who was saying JAB, and I say no. It's not an English word. In Creole, JAB will be JAB. and that's not even a Creole word. Jab, DJAB,
Right.
DJAB, right?
Right.
Devil. So that is the word that it came from. So I would like to see us as a nation start to spell it as DJAB and not JAB. JAB is not Creole,
Okay.
not patois, right? And I will really take some time to look into yay, because something is saying it has a Creole link.
Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Another question? Somebody has a question?
All right. This one is more so for Mr. Iraq because also we with this program is to really get knowledge of what it entails for a band to get on the road. A lot of persons don't know the financial side of things. So we want to speak to the nation, and we want to speak to Spice Mass. We have the Ministry of Culture here. We represent the Ministry of Culture. And we have been speaking to multiple traditional mass bands. And one of the things they would always express is the difficulties financially, year after year, in putting on a band. Basically saying sometimes the funds are not sufficient, is the time, the energies that is put into it, and then come on the day, they don't really get to display themselves, I should say, in a satisfactory way. So, Mr. Iraq, for our viewers, if you could just touch on your experience in terms of some of your challenges in putting out the band, challenges 10 years ago opposed to this year. I know we had a little conversation prior to, and I was expressing some of that. So people need to know, this is one of the main things, because in going forward, we want to see traditional mass, every traditional mass in Grenada with a major sponsor, just as PAN. So when it's time for Carnival, we have a product that persons can view, a proper product. And we have not just a proper product, but we could have band leaders and band members or so. Basically, when the time comes, they don't have to go through that set of headache. So we want to get to that road where we have major sponsors for the traditional mass, because, and in closing, this is, I would say traditional mass is the heartbeat of Carnival. So we really want to see traditional mass where it's supposed to be. So for the viewers, just some of what you have to go through, so in going forward we could fix these things.
Right, Mr. Bond. But one of the challenges which we really faces right now with the band, right, is the DJ, right? That's one of our main challenges. As practitioners, authentic players of the mass, we just have real problem with the DJs, especially like, okay, we put out X amount, everything come with a cost, right? And then we sacrifice to come as invitees, because most time we've been invited when we come to Grenville, especially on Carnival, Lounge in St. Andrews, we've been invited. So just recently, we had a little pressure, a little problem, Sunday gone. Because from Lafayette is no sacrifice, we might have to even supply little water and everything to the little children and them who we trying to really maintain to keep the tradition. But reaching in Grenville now, with the DJs, the DJ don't show no respect or no regards to we as traditional practitioners, right? When we reach to the barn, we can hear ourselves. It happened like it's a bomb, exploding the whole scenery, right? And, over the years, we're finding that is a really challenge for us, whereby we even get vexed and we say, well, next time we're not coming back again, because then at that time, we are the practitioners. We've been invited to come and display our talent, right? And not getting a little respect or a little chance to do that. Come on and say we feel away, right? And appealing to the authorities, I mean, I'm not against the DJ because we're trying to equalize the thing. Everybody must have a fair share, right? So, when the time reach for we to display the traditional mass, which the visitors come to see, because we thought that there is no Grenada Carnival, right? No carnival in Grenada, because then the authentic things is what really to the world now, and we have it, right? But we cannot get a chance to display them things and them, so we feeling, you know what I mean, like, it's better we hold with Madras as we go say in a common way, you know what I mean, and stay for the thing, but we, seriously, for the love for the culture, we don't want that, because we still want looking to keep the thing on and on and on and on, right? So we are appealing to the authorities to, you know what I mean, because them still invite or bring the DJ to the scene. So let me try to get something balanced, so then everyone's voice could be heard, you know? All right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much. We've come to the end, but we'll give the members on the head table the opportunity 1 minute to make final comments. I'll start with you, and I'll come up.
I would like to say thank you to everybody who've tuned in, everybody who's come. I'm really happy to be here because I'm learning as much as well, and sharing what I know, and hope that we could end up with a really good idea of what these masquerades mean to us, what is the history of them, and try to preserve some aspect of that to safeguard them for the future. I just wanted to mention that Shakespeare Mass has now been recognized by UNESCO on the Intangible Cultural Heritage list for the world. We've submitted an application for DJAB. That will be decided next year. So we're hoping that DJAB, because of what it means to us, that it becomes well known all over the world, but people understand what it means to Grenadians. So I'm hoping that we can put a lot of the traditional masks in a much better light, we don't just invite them and then not give them the respect that they're due, because we don't recognize that they need a certain environment in which to perform and things like that. So I guess that's my closing comments.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Mr. Nelson?
I would like to say that I think DJAB right now is part of the Grenadian DNA. That is why boldly it is in Canada, it is in New York, it is in England. And because of that, I hope the life would continue with it. I would like to echo one sentiment expressed by Iraq, that we collectively, the Ministry of Culture with Dr. Angus, Grenada Cultural Foundation, where I sit, and Spice Mass, and working alongside with all the authorities to ensure we could hold on a little on the DJs and have space, make space available for the authentic, for the expression. So, you know, the traditional mass bands can have their time on Carnival Day, apart from all the other time, but on Carnival Day, to be able to showcase that aspect of our culture wholeheartedly. So I think, if nothing else, if we achieve that, I think we are going to be really putting our money where our mouth is, which is saying that Grenada is the home of traditional mass.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Bola?
Just wanted to say thanks for inviting me here this afternoon. I came as a spectator, so to speak, but I ended up joining the head table. So thank you very much for having me a part of the discussion. We were told never introduce anything new in your last paragraph because you're closing up. But when we have a discussion of this nature, I am very concerned about the future, going forward. And we have the discussion not because we want to speak, but we hope to achieve something. And lots of discussions here today about consciousness raising. And I just want to say, going forward, the DJAB is not just for us. It's for the outside world also, and it's for our future. And I just have one concern. The DJs, of course, are creating a problem for DJAB. that people have been turned away, especially masqueraders. A serious concern for me is not because I'm a priest or I'm a prude, but I find over the years the Jab Jab song have been evolved into raw, very raw vulgarity. And sometimes people that want to listen, when they hear the song, they say, no, 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 let's go. They want to get out of there. My thing is to ask the captains of the bands to please try your best to tamper the vulgarity of some of the songs. They're just too raw for our local children and also for visitors, but just for ourselves. You know, we have to tone it down a bit. Last year, I think Lafayette School won the St. Andrews Sports Championship.
Yes.
And they went to play jab. And they had some beautiful songs. And everybody enjoyed it. And I said to myself, yes, we can do some more of that. And the estates, of course, supported them with provisions and so on so that they can, you know, get food and so on to eat. So we have to do more of that sort of a contribution, Mr. Iraq, for your band. If you need any sort of a provision for Jab Jab Day, we have enough blogger, fig, bread, food, you name it. We can give you that. But of course, I would like you as a captain to just, you know, get the guys together. Somebody comes up with a song and said, let's just change the words a little bit. It doesn't sound so raw. So thank you very much. Going forward, we will have a beautiful.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bola. Mr. Thomas, final word from you.
All right. Well, I would like to say thank you for having me here on the behalf of the Lafayette Jab Jab. And thanks to Mr. Bola for his offering, right, on the behalf of Lafayette Jab Jab. But still going back to say, you know, we like the people to really always bear in mind that Lafayette, when you say Lafayette, Lafayette in French it means little girls, right? So Lafayette is a place very, very cultural. So that's why you see from 73 up till now, we still maintaining the Jab Jab culture, right? Because as Mr. Historian said that Jab Jab came from the plantation, and Lafayette is a little, just a street, a little village, right? Which belongs with many surrounding plantation, like Paradise, Dunfermline, Boulogne, Nook, Moncton. Come across, we get Cardinal, we get Maribor, and come back to Grand Bar, right? So that is the street whereby many of the slaves used to come out and display their talent, right? So that is where we get many jabs and jabs and jabs from years to years inside the Lafayette. And we could go back even further when we used to get all them community as far as Hermitage, right? Tivoli coming inside Lafayette and display the talent in Lafayette Crossroad, right? It's not a junction, it's a crossroad, right? So from there on to this day, we have it going on. So we like for the people to always remember that Lafayette is a, you know, I mean, it's a job place, a culture place, right? And remember that tomorrow is with Job Lunch, so we're asking everyone to come out and give their support and see some of the practitioners of the real thing. Boss, you're going to get some spellings tomorrow. You're going to spell Lafayette for you. You want to hear it now? You say capital. Capital. We laugh, and we never fret. Yes. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an absolute pleasure, and we are so happy that you were able to turn out. While we would have liked more people to come, but we had a very, very good evening, and we do appreciate and thank all of you who came tonight. So we want to say a special thank you to all of those on the head table here. Next to me, Mr. Vaughn Thomas, Mr. Iraq, representing Lafayette Jab. Next to him, Mr. Evan Bola, historian. Next to Mr. Bola is Mr. Livingston Nelson, the CEO of the Grenada Cultural Foundation. And next to him, Dr. John Angus Martin. So we say thank you to each and every one of you. Of course, the audience as well as the staff of the Grenville Secondary School for allowing us to use their facility. And we also want to say a special thank you the Government Information Service as well for facilitating us. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson. Thank you so much for being with us. The last one we'll have is at the GBSS Auditorium on Wednesday the 15th, so that's Wednesday coming, and we will be speaking about Old Mass. If you can afford to join us, please do so. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.